G'day, welcome to this episode. Finally it's come time to epoxy the ute and the guards and wipe off the etch primer that's been on there for a while. So let's get into it. Okay, so after the test run of the wheels, I was really happy with the way everything was working. It's time to finally pay attention to the body of the ute. As you know, I've done the inside and underneath, so now it's time to amend the etch primer that was on there. It's been on there for about 12 months now. So it was a bit of for those who don't know, I was put on a bit of a bum steer with what I was supposed to do on the bare metals. I went in to get epoxy and the girl behind the counter was out of epoxy and she convinced me to get etch primer. At that stage I didn't actually know the difference between the two. I since know the difference. One's a 1K primer and the other one's a 2K, epoxy being the 2K. So etch primer is great for putting down on a surface that may need a little bit of adhesion before you put in on the base coat. And it's also good for binding in rusty areas and things like that. I did it sort of just to, in the end, it's been a great solution for me to protect the bare metal for 12 months. I'm not supposed to do it any longer than 6 months. I have, so that's all I can do. But now it's come time to do the epoxy, and you can actually wipe off the etch primer with some thinners. And I had a bit of a test run before, and it comes off really easily. So what I'm going to do to start things off is I'm going to use that thinners and a rag, and I'm going to go over the whole area, every single area that I've used with the etch primer, wipe it off back to bare metal, and then once that's done, deox it, get away any small particulars that might be still hanging around, and then have it once over ready for epoxy. So I'll start by setting a time lapse and let's wash all this etch primer off, and then we'll see what condition the metal's in underneath. Okay, so I've got all the etch primer off the whole cab, around the door trims, you know, inside. I've actually washed off a lot of inside the tub as well. The tub hasn't been brought back to bare metal. It's still got basically some of the primer sitting on top of the galvanized steel, which I'm not worried about. I've just given it a good degrease. I'll give it with the thinners as I'm trying to clean it anyway. I'll give it another degrease right before the prep anyway, just to make sure that everything's gone, and then it's epoxy time. So what I'm going to do now is I've got to get the usual standard practice. As it's been under the etch for a while, you never know, there's some, it could be some micro rust particles, that have permeated through that. So I'm going to deox it. Pretty much everywhere you see that's bare metal, I'm going to deox. This firewall here, I was going to KBS it, but what I think I might do is just epoxy the whole thing first, and if I want to go over the top with some black top later on, I will. The inside of the tub where is the little covers, I'm just going to tape up for now, put paper behind there. Those covers still need to be sandblasted, so I'm going to get all the little odds and ends that I need, take down the sandblasters, get them blasted, and then I'll do another epoxy run with the doors and all those little odds and ends at a later stage. But for now, I just want to seal this up in epoxy, and then that means I can get going on the body filler, and it's also sealed. So that's a plan of attack. Deox, degrease, tape, let's do it. Okay, Okay, so I've prep washed it, I've deoxed it, prep washed it, and basically when you prep wash, you do a wet rag with a prep wash on it, don't let it dry, but then wipe it off with a clean rag. Obviously the deoxit leaves a little bit of a etch in there, so it's got a bit of a rough feel to it. Sometimes I'm a little bit skeptical about the etch. It does leave a little bit of a residue on it. But in the testing that I've done, once you do the prep wash, it tends to smooth out. But it does etch, so if you brush it on with a brush, you can get runs. They do recommend you actually use a Scotch-Brite pad and then wipe it on, but you can still dribble in. So really, you leave it for 20 minutes and it does sort of dry to a residue. So basically there's nothing you can do about it. So there is a slight residue left on by the deoxo, but then with the prep wash over the top, it does smooth out. It doesn't seem to affect the paint whatsoever. Essentially with the Etch primer that I've done and the KBS, it hasn't anyway. So I'm pretty confident it's not going to affect the 2K primer, the Epoxy. And I'm going to run with that. So now it's come time to do the final masking, and quite excited actually to mask it up. This has been a long time coming, this epoxying this body. So that's a really good definitive moment to have the body pretty much in epoxy and knowing that you've done all the body work basically metal wise, and then we can start basically any step forward from here is one step closer to painting it. Very exciting. So I'm just going to get into it and start taping it up. So it's completely masked up now, as you can see. Monumental effort, I tell you. I don't envy spray painters having to mask up. It's a arduous job. But yeah, as you can see, doors, windscreen, all the grommet holes and stuff in the front of the firewall, wheel guards. Underneath, I want to protect all that KBS, so I had to do underneath as well. Every single thing that you can see, you possibly get spray paint onto the black, I've masked up and used paper, and I ran out of paper, so I used just masking film. This stuff's good. I only had a little roll of it. It's like 15 centimeters, but you can get it in large rolls. I'd recommend probably using that. It's probably a little bit easier to control than the plastic. But for the large areas like underneath, that rolling sticker plastic. So yeah, this stuff. Sip Jeep Auto, you can get all Bunnings, and just a combination of that wider, like 2-inch tape, and the smaller tape. That's really good. Tape that green stuff. Yeah, so just back tape it so it's your sticky parts facing out, and do it around the edges, and then like a window, and then you sort of just rest the paper or the plastic on top of that. That's a good technique that I researched online as well. So like most of the spray painters do that technique. So anyway. Cleaned and prepped inside the tray as well. I've done masked up the lights and all the holes that potentially could go through to the base of the car and protect that other paint. So now it's time to spray the epoxy. So I'm going to suit up and clean the booth a bit, and then yeah, she's getting painted. So let's go. There we have it. Epoxy's finally on, and it went quite well. I did stuff up the first batch. I didn't stir the epoxy enough, so the thinners that were already in it were up the top, so I did have to throw the first batch out, and then I was running out of hardener. But I still managed to get about 2.5 coats on it, almost 3, so I'm pretty happy with the coverage. Probably a little bit light on in the tub, but I'm going to be doing a Raptor liner there anyway, so that's no problems, and that's another 2-pack over the top of that. But in general, really happy. It's taken 2 years to get to this point, and you know, a lot of hard work. But I didn't cut any corners, and I did it the proper way, and I'm really happy that this now will last for years and years to come. And I know from top to bottom that it's completely been weeded out of all rust. Everything's internally been done all the way to the skin that you see now, and now it's just a matter of polishing it with body filler. And yeah, so really happy with it. Still a long way to go, but you know, this is another step forward. So basically, yeah, I've just taped her up, and yeah, so I can get it all on and obviously save the KBS from overspray. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. This is the way I've done it, and now it's a dilemma of whether I leave this tape on, you know, for the final coat. I know there's going to be a lot of dust for body filler and things like that, so I may need to tape it up again, but it was a nightmare. So yeah, I taped up the underside so that I could do all the rails along the sills there. Firewall's done. I won't do any body filler on that. I will probably just go over the top of that with some top coat, KBS top coat, to make it black, and probably just join it down there. But yeah, so yeah, just do a little walk around. It's whiter than I thought it was. I thought it would be a greyer finish, but yeah, you can see tub. You can see a lot more of the dents actually when this epoxy is on, but and the roof you can see it's got a fair few undulations, but you know, all in all, that's exactly what this process is all about, is getting the body filler on now to tidy all that up. There it is. Next will be the doors. I'm going to go back to welding, finishing those doors, and then I'll do the doors, the guards, and maybe the bonnet. I've got to get the inner guards, lower shroud for the radiator, and a couple of inner panels for the tailgate, the tub. I'm going to get them sandblasted and probably do them, maybe if I don't do that with the door, I'll do it afterwards. So now I can start body filler on this cab and try and get all the quarter panels nice and neat. Once the body filler's done, I will Raptor paint the inside, I'll high fill it. So once the body filler's done, next stage will be high fill, polish with the high fill, sanding, just keep going until I'm happy with it. Then I'll Raptor liner the inside. Anyway, that's it. It's a quicker one this time, only a couple of weeks. So I'm pretty happy with getting that out so quickly. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and started the journey, please subscribe and watch from week 1 up until now. And as I mentioned last episode, I also do have Instagram. So if you want to check out any behind the scenes stuff, check out Barnsley's builds, Barnsey_builds on Instagram. So until next time, thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode.